Hi, David. I found mirror worlds so prescient, and I've revisited a lot of times watching what we have now unfold. I'm just curious that now, almost 20 years later, with search and maps and dashboards and all the things we have now, how you see what we have now match up to what you envisioned back then. In what ways did it fulfill, and what ways did it distort?
It's a question I wonder about a lot. In some ways, the big flaw of the book was being too conservative, because it said, all this great technology, the book was published in '91, and it said, we're going to start seeing this within 10 years. We'll really start to see the early phases of this technology. Whereas really within 2, 3, 4 years at most, you were starting to see that. One is always surprised by how fast hardware moves and by how slow software moves. So I think in a way the book was too conservative, but in a way software builders and designers always underestimate the propensity of users to be satisfied more easily than they should be, or more easily than we think they should be. Software users being more intimidated than they ought to be in approaching software, which is our fault because we built and imposed so much cruddy software on the world.
But isn't it, it's also testimony to how adaptable humans are.
Yeah, it's testimony, right, but I'd like to see a lot more in the world of the net today. Some things specifically having to do with mirror worlds. I mean, mirror worlds had to do with reasonably comprehensive models of institutions that were real-time models in the sense of real-time reflection of stuff. And all the data is there. And certainly the modeling tools are available. And I'd like to take these software models and hook them up to 1 million real-time feeds. So when I look at the university I'm dealing with, or the city I'm wandering around in, or the small tech startup I'm dealing with, I can actually see the company and have everything up to date in real time, constantly updated. The real-time aspect of the web and the mirroring of society and its institutions in the cybersphere has gone more slowly and has not been as ambitious as I imagined it would be, not because the information isn't there. All the information is there. The data is there. The hardware is there. The sophisticated statistical and analytical techniques are there. But we don't see the sophisticated plugged-in software models that allow me to explore inaccessible reaches of reality by exploring online software worlds. In a sense, we don't see enough video games attached to reality as opposed to walking around by themselves.
Jay?
So Jay Giroux from Rapid Electric Vehicles. So contrary to popular belief at this event, I am in my mid-30s. And I say that for a reason, because I'm on that cusp in that generation of people who should or shouldn't be concerned about privacy. And honestly, I don't know anybody my age or younger who cares in the remote least about any system or internet website or anything else knowing where we are at what time with what we do with our whatever. And I quite frankly really look forward to a complete lack of anonymity and wonder about is there an eventuality, unless we can get rid of the internet, where this mobile geotagging, IT connecting us in real time to everything we do and everything we interface with at all times, becoming an eventual force of self-government, and what kind of thoughts you might have on that?
With respect to these privacy issues and the self-government, somebody said, I've been richer and I've been poorer, and richer is better. Some rich, I guess it was Groucho Marx, actually. And I think by the same token, mankind can say we've had a lot of privacy and we've had no privacy historically, and having a lot of privacy is better. I mean, if I go back to 1250, nobody has any privacy. If I go back to 1943 in the US Army Infantry, nobody has any privacy. Literally no privacy at all, literally none. So it isn't as if human beings can't function in these environments. In fact, they can function very, very well. But if you try and pick up in which way are people more productive and happier, I think it's fair to say that a decent amount of privacy, not having everybody, a sort of solipsistic, I want to be alone world, but with reasonable walls around a person's identity, and probably including his family. People have historically been happier that way. And frankly, I think that that's the way that software is going to evolve, despite maybe counter trends or views of this on the part of young people who've not necessarily been given a fair chance to evaluate the alternatives. Self-governing over the internet scares the hell out of me, because when I look at the question of, you can have a virtual institution of a million kinds, can you have a virtual nation? Can't you have a virtual nation? The internet, the answer is, of course. Al-Qaeda was one of the first. I mean, if you want to know what a virtual nation is like, it doesn't have capitals, it moves around from place to place, whose identity is its web identity, and whose population is its web population. Well, it turns out that that's a kind of nation that's very difficult to deal with, and potentially unspeakably destructive. So I think people are going to have to, there is a strong force in technology which says if it can be done, it will be done. And historically, that's been so. But that also reflects the fact that technologists would rather not think about the implications of what they're doing. I think we are seeing a transition to a more thoughtful technology community, more given to ask itself longer-term questions, strategic as opposed to tactical questions. And I think it's about time. I think it's in the nick of time, actually.
And speaking of time, we're running a bit over time, so we're going to take one more question. I know people must be hungry. Maybe if there's popular demand, we'll take another question beyond that, if you'll bear with us.
Yeah, Brian Wong from nextbigfuture.com. So I just had a question about live streams. I'm just trying to understand how your vision of that goes beyond, say, Twitter with geotagging and RSS feeds. How would you say that live stream goes beyond that kind of reality?
Well, I would rephrase the question. Is Twitter a version of live streams? Absolutely. I mean, the question is, to what extent does Twitter represent a limitation in the live streaming models we published in the 1990s? And the answer is a lot of strong limitations in terms of, well, let me put in the kind of streams we want. For example, the sort that John Brockman and I have been discussing as a possible future direction for edge discussions. We'd like to see a situation in which I, as a scientist publishing on a website, have an opportunity not just to Twitter. Twittering is a well-chosen term, but to speak seriously to issues. We want the real-time component that is part of Twitter that we've always thought is important. We want real-time conversations to be happening in the present, but we want a wide range of heterogeneity in terms of stuff that you can publish that will be carefully indexed. There's no reason why major publications in your own library and your own output shouldn't be on the stream at some point. Why there shouldn't be infinite reach back through the stream, however far back you want users to be able to go. There's no reason the stream shouldn't have a future as well as a past. So if I'm publishing stuff on the web, I also know stuff about my future. People who are interested in my work might want to know I'm giving a talk in such and such a place next Tuesday, or I recommend, you ought to hear Joe Schmo's talk and, whatever, or watch this TV show, or do this thing, or do that thing. We want the streams not just to be Twitter streams, but to have the real-time aspect of Twitter streams. We want them to go all the way back and to support any kind of post. We want them to go forward insofar as people are able to prognosticate about what they're going to be doing and are willing to share their plans with other people. And we want them in a certain context. A stream is valuable insofar as it is part of a system that's greater than the sum of its parts, insofar as it's an emergent system. The edge beams we've been talking about, in which we have a bunch of scientists, thinkers, philosophers, each writing his own stream, are interesting insofar as we want not just single people holding forth, but conversations. So we want to be able to support the conversation as a primitive type in this system. as a reflection of being able to add two streams together and divide them out and things like that. Twitter is a great model. Twitter has introduced real-time aspects that have been left out of too many live streaming models. Real-time is tremendously important. But it is also tremendously important that we not allow ourselves to be boxed into a model in which our conversation consists of trivialities.
Okay, so one more question. I think probably people are getting hungry. Is that true? Yes, thank you. I'm not seeing our mic handlers.
Thank you, Daniel Warren, Accenture. Maybe you can step back a little bit and share your perspective on the state of software in general, and to what extent our knowledge of how to build software is enabling or maybe constraining some of the things that you expect and would like to happen in terms of solving big world problems, for example.
I guess software could be a force for world peace. I don't think it has been. I think I look forward to an era of major civic works, public works, built of software designed for the cybersphere to a greater extent than we've seen them so far. Particularly having to do with history, which it is a characteristic of younger people, and looking at this from the point of view of an educator, that they know none at all. It would be interesting, and whereas meanwhile the scholarly field of history goes off more and more on weird tendential tracks that make it difficult for those who know nothing to learn anything, and make it easy for those who don't want to know nothing to continue knowing nothing. Historians will always disagree, but it would be easy for them to collaborate on a shared framework. I could see a bunch of scholars of American history who may disagree with each other and hate each other's guts, still putting down a series of markers in the cybersphere, not exactly in wiki fashion, but a group of people know who they are, and I want them on that committee. I respect them as scholars or historians of different points of view, saying, well, you know, this is basically what happened in 1750, and here are archives with documents they support it. This is what happened in 1984, and here are the photographs and stuff like that. These sorts of things, a unified approach to historical archives and data, a weeding through it, is something that could be tremendously valuable, because there has never been an era, I think, an educated era that knows so little about history that so desperately needs to know more. And I think that the cybersphere could be of tremendous help in that way, among others.
Well,